All right, today's lesson, we are going to start working on a 3D skybox. So for this one, I'm going to have you start a new project, a brand new fresh map. We're going to do a fairly simple 3D skybox to show you all the steps. And then if you want to add it to your main map to help, kind of clean up the edges or make the map look bigger, highly recommend it, but it's a lot easier to work in a new map sometimes than it is to work in a map that's got a lot of junk already in it. So what a 3D skybox does is it projects with a special camera a level around your level. So it gives the level the appearance of being much bigger than it actually is. The props in the level are smaller, and so they don't require as much rendering power to create these great distances and buildings and things like that. And it allows us to have these great big open appearing maps without actually having massive open spaces, which are hard to render. If you've ever played like Flight Sim 2020 or any game with a massive amount of open space, those tend to bog down even higher end computers. So this 3D skybox is kind of a trick that we can use to make a bigger map without actually really making a bigger map. So what I've got here is, this is one of the demo maps that Valve has provided. There's not a whole lot to it, but it demonstrates the principles behind a 3D skybox. So this is the level, and you can see there's building tops, and this building here, there's a rooftop. So this isn't meant to be a playable level, but what this is just going to show you or kind of demonstrate how a 3D skybox works. So we can see that there's parts to this level that are outside of the playable area here, which gives the illusion that there's more to this world than just this little courtyard here. So let's get out of here and look at the map itself. So this is that sample map, and you'll see that the level is pretty simple. There's not much to it. There's a wall and a skybox. That's it. This is the level that the player is inside of. You can see there's no buildings, no rooftops or anything around this. But if you look in my two-dimensional view, you can see there's something else over here. So this is where the player's at. That's the player start. But if you look in these two-dimensional views, you can see that there is something else here. It's not here. So let's fly over and check it out. Let's find it. There it is. All right, so you'll notice here's the map, and then there's this little tiny skybox over here. If we go inside of it, you see these little buildings. So these are miniatures. If I drop in a player start, all right, you'll see that the player is like gigantic compared to these buildings. In your 3D skybox, everything is 1/32nd scale, or 0.0625. So not 1/32nd, 1/16th. So everything in the 3D skybox is 1/16th scale, or in decimal 0.0625. So it's little tiny models that are then projected to look life-size around the player. So this is all those buildings that you could see, and you can tell that, they're not even real. There's not even a ground out here. But from where the player was sitting, you could see these rooftops and these buildings. All right. So we're going to start this off on a new map. So what I want you to do is open up, click File, New, and I want you to create a new map, okay, brand new map. And in the center of the map, okay, so zoom all the way out, and this is important, we're going to just put some ground in the very center of the map. And for the size, I don't care, 5,000 by 5,000, or roughly 5,000. Mine's a little bigger than that. Okay, so just some ground, thickness, whatever, 64, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so I need you to make me some ground. But the thing is, this ground, this piece of ground, in order to make the process easier on you, needs to be in the center. If you don't put it in the center, we can still do this, but it does cause us some grief and a little bit of more difficulty. So, and if your map that you want to put this on later isn't in the center, I can show you how to move your entire map to the center. But for this demonstration lesson, I want you to put the ground in the center of this map here, okay? In the center of the grid. And you can tell there's these greenish lines here. That's the center, all right? So I want you to center the ground in the middle of the grid. We call that the origin point of the map. That's what this little symbol is, this blue, red, and green line. That's the origin point of the map, okay? Now, I'm going to put the ground just a little bit under it when you look at it from the side profile and the front. So you can see there's my green line. My ground is just a little bit under it. From the top view, I'm pretty much centered on the X here in the middle. On the side, I moved it down just a little bit. Okay. All right, on that ground, I want you to add an info player start. So we're going to go to our entity tool, info player start. We're going to drop a player in here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add this entity right here. This is the thing that does a lot of the magic. This is called a sky camera. Okay, so you're going to go to your entity tool. You're going to come over here, type in sky camera, and you're going to put the sky camera at the exact origin point of the entire map, which is represented by this blue, green, and red line. So this must be absolutely centered on this origin point. It cannot be off by a block. It can't be close enough or about. It has to be exactly centered on this origin point. So if we look at my sky camera here, if we zoom in, these green lines go right through the center X on it. And if you look at it from this point, the green lines go exactly through the center of it. This camera gets the origin point of the map and uses it to align the 3D skybox with the rest of the game world. So when you drop in this sky camera, you're going to put it at exactly the center. And you can tell by looking at it that its X is right where these two green lines cross. You can also look at it in a 3D view and see that these lines come right out from the center on each one of these points. So I cannot emphasize this enough. The sky camera has to be at exactly the origin point of the map. The origin point is the center of the entire game world, and it's represented by these three lines right here, the blue, the red, and the green. Your sky camera goes exactly in that center point. Okay? All right. Now, the last thing we're going to do for today, the last step we're going to take is, we don't have a skybox yet, okay? So don't worry about a skybox. We are going to build around this ground. So this ground is the playable level. What I want you to do now is I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to take this ground and I'm going to go ahead and just copy it. So shift click drag. Okay. And I am going to extend the ground, and I'm going to line these up exactly side to side, and I'm going to build ground all the way around my original level. Now we can go ahead and make this a little easier by lining them up, and then I'm just going to stretch this one piece across. So let me make this real quick. Let's stretch this over. And you want them to line up exactly. Do not overlap them. Okay, so they need to touch the original ground. So remember, this piece in the middle is my original ground. This one, I added these pieces around the edge here. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to get it exactly lined up with this. Right? So I end up with something that looks like this. If we look around from here, there's my original ground, and around it I've got all these pieces here. Okay, continuous, they're all touching the ground, they're not overlapping, really important. Okay, nothing's overlapping. But I've got my original part in the center. That's going to be the playable level where the player can actually walk around and do things. All the rest of that ground is going to get transferred into the 3D skybox. Okay, so normally we wouldn't have a level this big, but because we're going to use the 3D skybox to shrink this, all this ground that we're creating around it is basically going to become scenery. It's not playable area, but it's all scenery. We can put buildings and trees and pretty much anything you can do in a level, we can decorate it. We're going to do a city because that's the easiest. But once I show you how to do that, you can kind of do it with anything. So your assignment today is to get everything done up to this point right here with your center ground, the pieces all the way around it. We're going to have a player start and a sky camera in the very center of the map. And then I want you to save this map and save it as, like 3D Skybox or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to call this 3D Sky Demo. All right, that is it for today.